It has just been learned that China has taken an extraordinarily aggressive position on trade in sending an extremely hostile letter to the world, stating that they're going to, effective November 1st, 2025, impose large-scale export controls on virtually every product they make, and some that are not even made by them. This affects all countries without exception and is obviously a plan devised by them years ago. It is absolutely unheard of in international trade and a moral disgrace in dealing with other nations. Based on the fact that China has taken this unprecedented position and only speaking for the USA and not for other nations who were similarly threatened, starting November 1st, 2025 or sooner depending on any further actions or changes taken by China, the United States of America will impose a tariff of 100% on China over and above any tariff that they are currently paying. Also on November 1st, we will impose export controls on any and all critical software. It is impossible to believe that China would have taken such an action, but they have, and the rest is history. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States of America. I wonder what he means by critical software, because if that includes things like Windows updates, then China would need to shift some of their infrastructure toward homegrown alternatives such as Harmony OS. But in the case of infrastructure that's built in Linux environments, I wouldn't be surprised if they just simply decided to fork the projects they need to and pull patches and maintain everything in a downstream way. But there is another issue when it comes to shifting devices toward homegrown alternatives like Harmony OS, and that's their limited device compatibility. And in the case of Harmony OS, it's exclusively designed for in-house chips and selected Snapdragon chips. So any infrastructure that uses x86 and still uses Windows for whatever reason may get completely fucked in terms of receiving updates. But I'm not sure how much of China's infrastructure still uses Windows because I know the government had a push to remove it from government systems. So let's be real here. The main people who will be affected by this will be the citizens of China, or more specifically, the ones that have computers at home for things like gaming or productivity, because they will either have to transition to Linux or get a device that supports China's homegrown alternatives. But as for Android devices that are using an ARM architecture that is not supported by these homegrown solutions, depending on the vendor, those devices may still receive updates, because just like Linux, AOSP is open source, patches can be pulled, and it can be maintained downstream. Or if they're feeling extra lazy, they can always fork Lineage OS or something similar. As for Apple products, mainly iPhones, but this may apply to some of their other products as well, you guys just simply might be screwed, as there really isn't any source code that can be forked or maintained downstream. But for certain other devices, there are projects like Asahi Linux which can. But remember, this all hinges on what is actually considered critical software. Personally, I would consider Windows updates and updates for Linux systems as critical software. However, Linux would be a lot more tricky as it's free and open source, and not all development for Linux systems is done in the United States.